is from the point of view of what's happening in the Supreme Court today. And since we're talking about the growth of fascism and the suppression of democratic rights and the oppression of people, it'll be very interesting to get a up-to-date version of what is happening at the highest level of the judiciary. When we speak of emergencies and fascist attacks and so on, Mr. Modi will take us back to the Indira Gandhi emergency. And so I will just say a few things about that first and compare it with the emergency that we are in today. That when the declaration of emergency took place, ultimately we know that our brilliant judges in the Supreme Court, very reputed, some of India's finest judges, surrendered. Supine. But what is little known, what is little talked of, or remembered, let us say, is that the high courts all stood firm. So when Indira Gandhi declared the emergency, High Court after High Court delivered judgment setting aside the declaration of emergency, particularly referring to the suppression of fundamental and democratic rights. Every High Court stood firm, and I'm telling you this for a reason. Because it was indicative of the depth of the judiciary, really. It was indicated that the judiciary had a certain spine at that time. Not much, but had a spine to stand up to Indira Gandhi's autocratic declaration. And just to explain what the emergency meant in legal terms, there was an exchange between the Chief Justice or a judge of the Supreme Court and the Attorney General. And the judge said, Mr. Attorney General, I want to ask you, does your declaration of emergency mean that if you arrest a man unlawfully, let's take it unlawfully, that the courts will be powerless to intervene? And the Attorney General said, that is so, my lord. And it is with that as background as well that the Supreme Court surrendered. But the point I made was that the High Court stood firm and gave declaration after declaration against Indira Gandhi. Today, 70 years, 50 years later, that is not the case. And that is why today, the emergency of Mr. Modi will be 10 times more dangerous than the emergency of Indira Gandhi. Because today, the judiciary has been systematically weakened. I can't be too explicit. Systematically weakened by the executive, true. Executive plays a role in weakening the judiciary. But from within, by persons within the judiciary who rise to high levels of power and prominence. And you'll see their photographs in the papers every day, waxing eloquent on human rights issues. Undermined from within by the collegium system also, which was meant to be a check on the power of the executive. From the government side, the attack is so severe on judges that today I could tell you confidently, and I think most lawyers who practice in the Supreme Court or the High Court will tell you that judges are terrified of this executive. Frightful of this executive. So if you're high up in the High Court, if you're number 1, 2, 3 in the High Court, and you have a chance to be a Chief Justice of a court, you write a judgment against the central government policy or something, you will never become, or you may not become, a Chief Justice of that court. And if you are a Chief Justice of a court, and you give a thumping judgment against the government, you will probably never reach the Supreme Court, even though you may be very high in the seniority. People are afraid. And Arvind Kejriwal on the 50-year anniversary of the Delhi High Court put it nicely. It was an amazing thing that he did. I think most of you must have forgotten. But for us, it was a memorable speech. 50 years anniversary, you see everybody. Top people from the executive, the ministers, everybody was there. And Arvind came to the stage and he said, "What is this I hear? Even judges are telling me, मुझे आश्चर्य लग रहा है. सभी लोग कहते हैं कि हमारा फोन खतरे में है, फोन रखना ही खतरा है." And he said, "I'm hearing judges are complaining that their phones are under surveillance and their wives' phones are under surveillance." So, can you imagine in front of everybody? And it was interesting because the camera caught the discomfort of the ministers as he spoke about surveillance. Surveillance is very extensive, I suppose. Of course, I'm not knowledgeable.
I've kept my phone downstairs. That's okay. I've kept my phone downstairs.
Oh, okay. I'm very naive about these things. Very, very naive. Technologically challenged. So, and I must tell you the Pegasus row also. Pegasus is used, I think, I don't know, is used very extensively for surveillance of judges' wives, maybe their sons and daughters, their sons who are doing legal business and so on. And so judges are really scared. So if an emergency were to come tomorrow, although we are in it, but if a formal declaration is made at any time or anything really serious happens, the High Courts will not stand firm. That is why I say it is a situation 10 times more dangerous than the Indian economy. Because the judiciary, which is supposed to be the protector of the people, will not protect the people. That is certain. You heard of this case of this judge, Victoria, who was made a judge in the Madras High Court, who was famous for her statements, hate speech statements. It was linked in some way with the BJP media cell, I'm told. And she said there are two types of terror in this country, green terror and white terror. Green terror, of course, is Muslim terror. White terror is the first time I'm hearing this. White terror is Christian terror. And white terror is more dangerous than green terror because the white terrorists have libraries and hospitals and schools where they get their influence from. So white terrorism. And who would our collegium choose as a judge of the Madras High Court? In all their wisdom and collective wisdom and all that, who would they choose as a judge of the Madras High Court but this lady who gave hate speech? And every judge, every lawyer in Chennai at least knew what her politics was, this hate speech statements and so on. And the collegium chose her and made her a judge recently, I think 2023. So when it was challenged, I'm just telling you how now compromised the judiciary has become, how dangerous the situation we are in. Because we expect governments to be autocratic, democratic, harsh, I would say almost terrorist-like in their behavior. The state likes to point its fingers as activist A, activist B, activist C. But we must look at the state as terror. The state as terrorist. And when the case came to the Supreme Court, can you imagine our Supreme Court held? We cannot do anything about this appointment because we can only look at eligibility, not suitability. Let me repeat that. We can only look at eligibility, not suitability. You're appointing a judge to the High Court. Eligibility means the usual 10 years experience as a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Suitability. Whether a person is suitable to hold a constitutional post, whether a person expresses a political view in terms of hate speech, that you can't say the person is not suitable to be appointed to the High Court. So, my dear friends, the rot is from within. I won't talk about the rot from without, because we expect this government to be very harsh, and it is very, very harsh. But the collegium system has actually turned out to be a terrible betrayal of all that we expected from collective leadership of the courts. Collegium is 5 senior most judges. Now, we've had judges taken from the High Court, from 1 is not taken, 2nd senior not taken, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th will be taken and made right up in the Supreme Court. Now we have a number of examples of this kind of supersession. It was never there earlier. You would come by, broadly you'd come by seniority, and among senior persons, a little bit here and there. Number 5 may be taken as compared to number 4, but it never happened that somebody way down in the seniority would be taken and sit in the Supreme Court. So the disservice that our senior judges do sometimes, disservice to the nation, disservice to the people, disservice to human rights, by tinkering and undermining the very system that takes them to the highest peaks of power within the legal system, is something little spoken of, little written of. And I will urge all of you who are journalists in the audience, you must think about writing of the judiciary, because it is a real thriller, if you like. It's amazing the kind of things happen. And second, the collegium is not willing to protect judges who stand up for human rights. And you have Justice Muralidhar's example. Not willing. So if a judge stands up against the government and gives a judgment, correct judgment, let us say, collegium is not willing to protect that judge when the executive victimizes. Muralidhar was sitting in the High Court. He was one of the senior most judges. And the Delhi riots case came before him. And the Delhi riots case was the case where Anurag Thakur was filmed saying, "Desh ke gadharon ko goli maro sab." Cabinet minister. Hate speech. Nobody was willing to touch it. Judges are scared to touch it. Good judges are scared to touch a case. Murli opened it, Justice Muralidhar opened it and said, this FIR must be registered. Obviously, this is clearly a crime. And there were senior law officers present. Nobody was willing to touch it. Suddenly the law officers saw a judge who was willing not only to touch it, but to give an order. Arguments went on fiercely. He said, Justice Muralidhar said, how can you even argue that an FIR is not to be registered? He's caught you on video saying these things. Kill the Muslim, kill the Muslims, kill the Muslims. How can you say? Went on, and then the law officer said, I agree. We must do something. Let me think, let me go back, let me consult, and by tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, I'll give you an answer. And my heart sank. Because I know with what speed this government can act when they want to do something terrible. And inside me, I was thinking, this is not right. Justice Muralidhar made the mistake of his life. I made the mistake of my life because I never took it up subsequently with the alacrity that I should have done. I could see that law officer going back fuming. And I think at 9, 10 o'clock at night, they issued the order for his transfer. And I think with that, he lost whatever chance he had of going to the Supreme Court. not willing to protect your officers, not willing to protect your judges. So the undermining comes from the top and from the government. And the undermining from the top was not there during Indira Gandhi's time. It was straightforward a battle against the Indira Gandhi regime, the authoritarian regime. I want to mention a few things more about how we go very surely but definitely towards a fascist regime in this country. No doubt about it. But I'll look at it from what is happening in the courts. You'll hear in the papers the ministers saying, it's time for us all to change the law and get rid of our colonial past. They love this lingo, really. It's a spin, like spin doctors. We must get rid of this colonial lingo in Indian law. But when I look at Indian laws and I look at the British period laws and I look at the laws that they are going to make, they're drafting a new criminal code and all that. When I look at the two, I'm going to say something quite sacrilegious. Namely, I think that our colonial masters were better. And our colonial masters were better sometimes. Please. It's a very provocative statement to make. But our colonial law drafters were better in the sense that even the British Empire, even the colonial empire had notions of natural justice and fairness and truth. And you look at it and compare it with the code that this government has made, horrifying. All in the name of getting rid of our colonial past. From a British colony to fascism. Now we have to choose which is better. Sedition remains in the new code. And sedition, summarized simply, is words are good enough to put you in jail for a long, long time. That's it. Words against the state. Words against the minister, words against whatever person in authority. Sedition is that. If you ask me what is the definition, words are good enough to put you in jail. You don't have to have a gun, you don't have to be a terrorist, you don't have to throw a bomb, you don't have to have a knife. Neither, you just need words, strong words. That was the British colonial legacy, which is gone. Can you imagine? We took it from the British and the British got rid of it some 15 years ago, 20 years ago, sedition was repealed. But India retained it. And now in the new code, they're reenacting words are good enough. Now all our comrades who are in jail, all our comrades who are in jail today are in jail because of words. And if you try and understand the case and try and figure out what is it that they are in for, please remember the golden rule. Words are good enough for the state to do. Take the Pinjra Tod case. Young women in college and so on, young women doing what? Criticizing the government, fearlessly put them in jail. And what did the High Court do? Brilliant judgment of one of the few outstanding judges. What did the High Court do? The High Court said, Mr. Prosecutor, I'm not interested in their defense, Pinjra Tod defense. I'm not interested in what they have to say. I'm only looking at your charge sheet, sir. From your charge sheet, show me one line where they've used force and violence against the state. Apart from words, you show me one line. And they came out after spending, I think, a year in jail. They came out because they couldn't show one line. Gogoi in Assam, same thing. The Assam High Court, the Guwahati High Court said, show me one line, Mr. Our dear comrade and friend, Mr. Khaled, was rotting in jail. For what? Provocative speech. Provocative speech. And the judge could not even put it as to what the provocative speech was, because had he put it in the order, I think even lay persons like you and others would say, what's wrong with this provocative speech? And make no mistake about it, speech is thoroughly covered by Indian case law, by Supreme Court case law. Rangarajan's case. You can say things hateful to the government. Cannot be caught for speech, for mere words. And Khaled, what is he in jail for? What is he in jail for? He's in jail for provocative speech. Kishore Chandra, the journalist of Manipur, was put in jail for a year. Arrested for what? Does anybody remember? Kishore Chandra. And he went to jail 3 times after that, repeating some things of the sort. It's the same thing again. Can anyone remember what he said? In a press conference, he told his chief minister, fuck off. In a press conference, I don't know what happened to him, how his demand got so upside down. But he told the chief minister, fuck off. So the chief minister must have told his aide, have him arrested for sedition. And they put him in jail for that. And how much argument will you give to a judge that's saying fuck off is, rude. It's rude. It's not undermining and overawing the state and threatening the state, toppling the state. It's rude. Rudeness is not a crime in India, thank God. Till now. If Modi wins the next election, we don't know. Maybe it will become a thing. And Professor Sai Baba. Saddest, I'll finish quickly. I'll take maybe five minutes. And Professor Sai Baba acquitted in a UAPA case. Because UAPA requires 2 authorities. There's an authority and there's a sanctioning authority. And before doing a case, these 2 authorities of the state must confirm that the evidence requires the man to be arrested. Both of them didn't say so. The state authorities didn't say so. That he requires to be arrested or give reasons why he was acquitted. High Court stood firm, nicely. High Court stood firm, Bombay High Court. Fantastic judge, fantastic judgment. There are people who fight back. Even within a rotten system, people fight back. Because it becomes intolerable, too much to bear for even the ordinary person. Forget the revolutionary. For the ordinary person, it becomes. And what does the Supreme Court do? Without coming to the conclusion that the judgment is faulty, the Supreme Court says we will need to study this judgment. Study it by all means. But you don't send the man back to jail after he's acquitted. It's unheard of in the country. Send him back to jail. Sorry, we need to study. We need some time to study, so go back to jail. But I'm acquitted, my lord. Never mind, I'm going to go back to jail. It's an interesting point of view, etc. etc. Sai Baba, who I remember, in his younger days, he used to come for political meetings. Much younger days, many years. He used to come with chappals on his hands and knees. Come. What a shame here, what a country this is. And then Bhima Koregaon, of course, all of them, no overtact. Sudha, no overtact. Some bloody letter, not caught from her, not found on her computer, not in her handwriting. Somebody says, this is something Sudha said or wrote, somebody else's handwriting, and Sudha spent so many years. One of the finest lawyers in this country, Sudha Bharadwaj, working for tribals day and night. Gadling, criminal lawyer from Nagpur, super lawyer, always fighting for people day and night, often without money, all in jail today. So my dear friends, we have actually, when we have a meeting like this and when we come together to speak, we have to go into the next gear of mobilization against the state, of mobilization for the protection of democratic rights. And just to end this thing, freedom of speech is very vigorous. People don't realize. Now in Manipur, we have a cookie friend who sent us a post. I dream of cookie land. I dream of cookie land, where all our cookies will live in peace. He's taking it sedition now. There's a sedition FIR filed against him because he says this. And very few of you may realize, just to tell you the breadth of this. Even saying Khalistan Zindabad is not a crime. Khalistan Zindabad, Supreme Court case, Khalistan Zindabad without violence. I come and say, Khalistan Zindabad, my Sikh brethren, we must mobilize and get a land for my people. Not right. Unless we pick up arms and start overthrowing the state. And the famous Kashmir case, Azadi, Azadi. साथियों हमें साथ में आना पड़ेगा और इस सरकार को हटाना पड़ेगा और हमारे लोगों के लिए आजादी चाहिए. Azadi presumably from India. Supreme Court said, where's the crime? Where's the violence? Where's the gun? Where's the knife? Where's the bomb? Prosecutor said, no, so there was no violence and he was acquitted. So now, I want to end with only the Manipur example, which is going on now, being played out in the Supreme Court. I wish I could speak openly about certain things about that case, It causes me great burning and anguish too. But the important from the fascism point of view is that it is a path breaker for this country's fascists. The groups that organized the killing of the cookies, and 135 have been killed, are fascist groups promoted by the state. There are two names they have. There are videos. They have automatic weapons, drones, and IED, explosive devices, which they get from the government. You would have read in the papers that they looted the armories of the police. They haven't looted anything. Chief Minister is also the Home Minister. The Home Minister has control over the police station. So I think there was a certain amount of camaraderie in delivering these guns over to these groups. And they number about 10,000. You see, in the Bombay riots, in the Gujarat riots, in the Sikh riots, the rioters used homemade weapons. Kerosene, knives, sticks, trissues, whatever they used. But generally, I think, I may be wrong also, generally I think you don't have people moving around with submachine guns and sending drones with bombs. You don't have that. But this is a new phase and a very deadly phase, where the forces of fascism will be thoroughly armed when they attack the ordinary population. That is why I say we're going into a time where fascism, the emergency of Mr. Modi will be 10 times more dangerous and lethal than the emergency of India. Thank you.